of the Police Advisory Council to order at 6:05. You have a copy of the agenda. If you can take a look at that, and we'll entertain them.
I'll move approval of the minutes as presented.
Agenda.
Or the agenda, sorry.
Second.
Looking at the minutes.
Second.
And moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And then I'll move approval of the minutes.
Minutes have been moved. Is there a second?
Again?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I had a couple of notes here before we go to public comment. We have just a note that we've started some conversations about the Gainesville Police Department Foundation again. So there's some questions that we need to sort of revive that foundation, get that rolling again. So the conversations have started on that. Just wanted to let you know. Also, that it was requested, I think, I remember my Evelyn requested if we could receive a copy of our member terms.
Yes,
So
Oh,
we have received that, I believe.
That went out.
that was
Yes.
nice.
And does anybody know offhand if someone wanted to, a number, 2, 4, 6, 8 of us are done January 21st in 2024, if there was an interest in continuing what that process is?
I assume that they would post openings and we would be considered. Usually they will consider a reappointment unless there's a reason. I just don't remember the final term limits of like when, because they were trying to stagger us, I think.
I don't think they did term limits on us that I
They
recall.
didn't? Even if they didn't, we're still not through all of them anyway. But I was thinking about, do we all want to roll off at the same time? Is that a good thing or not? And so maybe when you speak to the commission, maybe you should ask, say, hey, by the way, we're coming up on this. What is the commission's preference? And they may say, see if you can stagger it or whatever. Because I don't think they want to have, a whole turnover at the same time.
Can't imagine. And then the other 3 are the year after that.
Yeah.
So
So they got to probably.
I think I
stagger.
filled the term of somebody, I
You
believe.
did, I think you did. Yeah, there was a lot of jumps and starts, and COVID really, that was all happening during COVID too,
Yeah.
so a lot of.
Well, we have a little time, so I'll inquire to find the process, and then I'll certainly make that comment
Yeah.
at the commission meeting.
Can I ask something
Please,
before we do the minutes? So,
we've done the minutes.
I would like to, randomly, Brittany is saying that she's absent. It's in the June one also. So is she still on the board or not? Because here, PAC members, it doesn't list her. I miss
I
her.
think she's done.
Yes,
I think she'd have to reapply.
Because we were going to have, so I've seen this,
Okay.
I see it randomly where she's counted as absent, and I thought she had already retired. I just want it, because it is
You're right.
here.
Term expired.
I think her term expired earlier in the year, but I can't.
Yeah,
remember
'cause
when.
we were
It's
gonna
definitely
have-
before June.
We were going to have
Yeah, it's early.
hey, I miss ya, see ya,
Yeah,
and that never happened.
okay.
So I'd like to, on the June, sorry, I didn't bring my reading glasses, minutes, I'd like to have her name taken off of members absent.
We can do
We
that.
can do that.
Okay.
And I don't think that needs to vote. I think that's ministerial. We're cool.
Okay. All right. Okay, I don't believe we have any public comment at this time. Not seeing any. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Evelyn, just a quick note, because I thought that you had requested the member terms, and we all received a copy of that
Okay.
through the email. And I'm going to chase that down as to what the process is, and also make a comment to the city commission on what their interest is, because we don't think they're interested in having 8 people step off at the same time.
Okay. All right. Nice to see you.
Okay. We've got attached the PAC third quarter report. The take a look at that.
All right.
I just wanted to comment, I really appreciate how you did that. Very professional, well done, and it's useful.
Yes.
Hopefully it's sort of capturing some history too.
Was this sent to the commissioners?
Not yet, not without this approval.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, it should go. Okay.
You need a formal vote to
Yeah.
send it on. I'll move approval of the third quarter report as presented.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Bree, second. Any discussion?
I think it's great.
Okay. All in favor of moving this to the city commission, please say aye.
Aye.
It's okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to the chief's update. Chief Scott, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Good
What
to
was
be
it,
seen, too.
3 months?
It's been about 3 months, yeah. It's been a while. What I'll give you is the overall statistics that we have for what we used to call UCR, but it's going to be the NIBRS report. We show, and again, this is an estimate through June 30th. Right now, this is June 20th, but I know we have a couple of other incidents. But it shows overall that we had a decrease in violent crime increase in violent crime of 2.17%. So over the last year, from counting the calendar year, this is a 2.17 increase in violent crime. At one point, it was higher than that. It seemed to be trending down. I hope it continues to trend down so that we can get below that positive number and have a decrease. We have overall for crime, we have a 17.34% increase because the property crime has increased by 21.17%. Again, that's folks that are, taking cars. I don't know if you've noticed the news media, they have been putting forth some of this stuff, reference the Kia and the Hyundai and how people are stealing the cars. We even have some of the folks coming in attempting to take catalytic converters now from this area. That was something that was popular out west. We still have auto theft that are occurring, and that's going to show a slight decrease right now. But that number of incidents has not dropped significantly. What has increased significantly is the burglary. We have burglaries that are up by 42.41%. And a lot of these burglaries, some of them are attributed to the unlocked cars. And no matter how much we put the information out, asking people to lock their cars, they're still not locking their car. They're putting their valuables where they can be seen. They also are leaving firearms in the car, and it's just making for a very tenuous situation. It's one thing to have your car locked, it's another to have a firearm in it and have a lock. So we still have a significant number of firearms that are being taken from the cars that have been unlocked. I mean, it just amazes me that I know there was an effort, I think, by Representative Henson to get a law passed that would make it criminal to leave a gun in a car and not have it secured, not locked. And quite frankly, I support that wholeheartedly. I mean, it's one thing to leave it in the car and you locked it, which still is not the wisest thing, but I can understand you're going into different places. But to have it in the car and not lock it is just inexcusable. Because a lot of these weapons are used in crimes later on, and eventually get to a point where they may end up taking someone's life. Other than that,
Chief, in burglary of a vehicle like that, you might get 4 vehicles in a 2-block area that have something taken out of them. Are each one of those, they're considered separate burglaries?
It's really about an incident. If we can show that it happened, and that's the incident-based reporting, if we could show that was from one incident, it would count as one incident. But if we show that there were a couple hours separation or locations were far enough apart, they would count as separate incidences. You know, and that's the entirety of how the incident-based reporting is done. The same thing with homicide. If we have a person that goes to a location and they kill 2 people at that location, it shows up in the report as one incident when there were 2 deaths that occurred. So we try to provide you both sets of numbers so that you have a true understanding, particularly with deaths and how that's counted.
At the outset, you said an increase in burglaries. Were you talking about just vehicles or structures
Overall,
also?
homes as well. But burglaries, car burglaries seem to be the driving force for us, but it's home burglaries as well. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, the numbers, are they coming from arrests, formal charges, convictions? Where are we pulling them?
This is generated by the number of reports that we're taking,
The
the incidents that we verify. So if we get a call and someone says that there's a burglary that occurs, we respond to the location, we conduct an investigation, we verify that there was a burglary that occurred, then that number is counted in here.
Okay.
So, and sometimes when people call us, they may call and give us the wrong, so
Right.
people call and say, hey, I've been robbed. Okay, we get there and find out that their house has been broken into. That's a burglary, not a robbery. And so we have to get there, verify what occurred, classify it, and then it's counted in the statistics.
Okay.
Okay. Like to mention that we have a gun violence summit coming up. The city has that coming up in a couple of weeks. We look forward to participation in that. If you can attend, I would encourage you to do so. Our efforts with gun violence continue. We're working with the school board. I had a call from one of the local schools, and we're going to be meeting with some of the kids, some of the youth. At the beginning of the school year, trying to deter them from committing violent acts and give them some counsel on conflict resolution. Also cautioning them about the results of their activities, that they're not taking advantage of some of the measures that we're putting in place, like mental health counseling, substance abuse counseling, employment, all of those things are things that we're trying to make sure that we get into the schools with. I've been working with the superintendent, and I have to try to get that all ironed out within the next week or so, because school starts in a couple of weeks. Yes, sir.
You did.
I was trying to keep it to myself because it's halfway personal, but in this, there's a home burglary and there's an eyewitness. How important is it to interview an eyewitness?
Extremely important to interview the eyewitness, because that can lead to the perpetrator of the incident. You know, if that doesn't happen, then you need to give me a call, or really Captain Owens.
I've talked to
Within
the
check.
department about it and it still didn't happen. So I don't want this to be my personal
Yes.
pursuit. I just want
But Captain Owens will get with you, and we'll follow up on that and see what we can get done.
Did you say a date for the gun sale? We don't have it yet.
It's two Sundays from now. It's not this coming Sunday.
6th and 7th of August.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions.
Mhm.
So that is something I've been trying to get some movement on, Representative Henson's, the lockbox in the car thing. She can't even get it out of committee. So what, since you support it, I've talked to the sheriff before, what can we do?
Yeah, I spoke with, there was another representative that was going to co-sponsor the bill, I believe, with him. And she asked me to speak to him, and I spoke with him, and he indicated that he was going to be supporting it. So, you know, and sometimes these bills take a year or two, a couple of efforts to get through. We're hoping that in this coming year that she's successful in getting that move forward.
Can anything be done about that under local ordinance? Can a local ordinance stand?
I don't think so.
It's anything to do with guns, quite frankly, the state has set it up so that it makes it very difficult to make any adjustments to restrictions on guns or laws that pertain to guns. And I think that'd be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do.
Are you done with your presentation?
Yes.
I have one more question.
Mhm.
So we had gotten a report about the ministers, there was like a group, I can't remember now, that was meeting one-on-one. There was like a dozen kids. Is that still going on?
Yeah, that was part of our one community effort, and we meet with the pastors, and we have a group of pastors that are working with us. And we met with some at-risk youth and young adults, and what we've done is expand the BOLD program. And the BOLD program will assist these folks in trying to obtain a job, and we've had several that have jobs. People who we know that if they don't get a job, they're going to be out doing something they're not supposed to do. So we're also working with them as far as counseling. And so the BOLD program, I think now, it used to have about, I think at max maybe 20, 24 people. I think right now it's 60. And so we've expanded the age for it, where it was confined to a small age. We expanded that age. I know we just picked up a person that did 15 years in prison. We're trying to help him. So it's really helping not just with that issue, but recidivism. And we're taking our efforts to try to make sure that we can put these people with jobs and give them a better start than what they had in the past. So we're working actively with that, and Diamond Smith is our lead person for the BOLD program.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how many officers are you down now?
Ooh, I'm guessing around 40 at this point. We hired 12 and sworn 12 in February, I believe. We had another 4 that we sworn at the beginning of this month. We have another 11 that will be starting in August. We changed our hiring cycle. We used to hire twice a year. We're at least 3. We're pushing for 4 times a year. So we're trying to be do it on a more frequent basis, because as I spoke to my training staff and my personnel unit, insanity is repeating the same thing, expecting different results.
Yeah.
So we're trying something new, and we think it's paying dividends. The other side of that coin is that it's not just recruitment, it's retention. And so how do we retain the people that we have? The commission has been generous with us, worked with us on trying to address some of those issues, and we appreciate their cooperation. They and the city management has given us what we asked for. I'm sure when we have our next round of negotiations, there'll probably be more. We have to stay competitive with the salaries. I mean, the state has moved the bar, so to speak, and I think troopers now start off at $55,000. And that used to not be the people we had to compete with, and now we have to compete with them as well.
And so, because you're 40 officers down, what impact does that have on your detective unit, which would look at crimes such as catalytic converters, etc.?
You know, the detective unit, and I just got through talking to Captain Owens and Lieutenant Scott about the detective and the amount of work that they do. They're getting the job done. It's a smaller group, but they're getting the job done. As soon as we can get adequate staffing, our first priority, quite frankly, is to have enough people to answer the calls when you pick up the telephone and call. Our second priority is trying to get folks that can investigate these crimes and remove some of these people from the streets. The detective unit, based on what the report I received this afternoon, is doing an outstanding job. I think our clearance rate for homicides is, if it's not 100%, it's real close to 100%. I think we have one that's outstanding now, but we think we're going to be able to solve that. But they are one of the best in the nation as far as solving homicides. They also have made significant arrests and other person crimes and property crimes, and they're doing a great job with it. If we do suffer on anything, it'll be property crime, because we don't have the personnel to dedicate to that. But with person crime, when somebody's robbed, attacked, that's where we put the bulk of our resources. Any other questions from the 3? Brought for you today a special guest. You know, so it's been, I think I've had been over a year that I had to assume the role of chief, assistant chief, sometimes fiscal officer, part-time PIO, the whole deal. And we recently hired an assistant chief, Nelson Moya. And Nelson Moya, I'll let him come up and tell you about himself and some of his experiences, but this is the person that I can count on to assist me. So now I have two. I have a right hand and a left hand. I have Assistant Chief Moya and the Chief Inspector, and I've got my captains that are definitely those that can take care of business for me. So I'll let Chief Moya come up and introduce himself and answer any questions you might have of him.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, the rest of the council. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Yeah, so it's been 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks since I arrived at Gainesville, not only to the police department, but to the city. So I'm new to this community. So it's been a whirlwind of activity for me and my family. And it's a great challenge for us. I look forward to working with you all and certainly hearing everything that you guys have to offer and certainly any advice that you can offer to our organization. I can already tell you that your police department is staffed with some great employees, sworn, civilian, that truly care about this community and each other. And I think that is a great recipe for us to have continued success, particularly given some of the challenges that we face in terms of staffing and certainly some of our external issues that we face as a community, which are not unique in this country, but it requires a unique response for us here in Gainesville. A little bit about myself. So I've been in public service for over 32 years. I served 31 years for the city of Palm Bay and Brevard County as a police officer since I was 19 years old. I went up through the ranks, and I was lucky enough to serve as their police chief for the last 3 years leading up to my retirement. I only retired because I had an opportunity to go back to my home state of Long Island, New York, because I had an opportunity at a level of government that I always wanted to work in. I followed that opportunity. I had a great experience. I learned a lot about their public safety protocols, in particular community supervision. So I was in charge of our probation department, and that complemented a lot of what I knew going into it. The community supervision side of the house, in terms of probation and what those folks do, is really special. They do a lot of things really well that I think if we can infuse some of that methodology, some of that mindset with what we do, it would make us a lot more effective. So I look forward to seeing how that plays a role in this agency. But there's a lot of good things that our folks are doing. And I'm getting hit by all angles, as you can imagine, trying to meet and talk to as many folks as we can. And I'm in listening mode, trying to learn how we do business here. The how is really important because it helps me come up with a priority that I can then, with the chief's collaboration, really help them bring this organization and this community, raise it as far as we can go. So I really look forward to working with you all. So thank you. And I'll answer any questions that you guys may have for us.
Assistant Chief, in your role, what responsibilities will you have?
So we're still working that out. Obviously, the day-to-day operations of the agency typically fall under the office of the assistant or deputy chief. The police chief's office is encompassing of everything. A lot of it has to do with external ambassadorship, dealing with city departments, dealing with our commission. So as we proceed forward, I can envision that I would have more responsibility in the operation of the day-to-day business of the organization.
Well, we want to welcome you. Congratulations.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about the city of Gainesville, whether it's places to go or places to eat, you've got the experts in this room.
You're talking to a cop, so you just said something to eat. That's a big thing for us. But thank you all. I really look forward to your leadership as well.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Glad you're here.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to closed internal investigations reports. We do have one that's tabled. I'm going to hold that one until the last. We'll treat each other's first. We're going to start with 22-091. This is the case of an officer that was late for a briefing 3 times in 30 days. I think it was even more than that, but it was 3 times in 30 days. This case was sustained. The officer received written instruction and counseling. Are there questions on this case? Next case is 22-092. This was improper death investigation. The officer did not turn in a body-worn camera, so there were 2 here. One was the alleged improper death investigation. The other was the officer did not turn on the body-worn camera. This was sustained. The officer received written instruction and counseling. Officer also received 10-day suspension without pay, and the officer received remedial training. Questions on this case? Okay. Next case is 22-093. We've got a few of these. This is an accident with a police cruiser. This one was sustained. The officer received an employee notice and loss of vehicle privileges for 1 week. Okay. I think this was the first occurrence for this officer, correct?
I have to be honest, it's probably his first in the last 2 years. He's been with us 30 years, so
Okay.
without telling you I'd have to go back and look if there had been anything.
Okay.
So for department traffic crashes, it's within the last 2 years, according to policy, like for escalation. So after 2 years, they kind of fall off. So,
Next case is 22-094. This was an accident with a police cruiser. This case was sustained. Officer lost vehicle privileges for 14 days. This was the second incident. Also received 5 points. Received an employee notice, 40-hour suspension. I assume that's without pay. Loss of vehicle privileges for 8 weeks, and remedial training. Questions on that case? Okay, case 23-006. This was a case where the officer hit a gate with the cruiser. The case was sustained. 2 points were assessed. Loss of vehicle privileges for 7 days. And the officer received an employee notice. Questions there? Okay, case 22-072. I thought we had this one before. This was the unreported damage to a police cruiser.
It's
have
an
talked about
update.
this before. Was there an update?
There's more stuff on there,
Okay,
because as they were reviewing, they saw she wasn't turning on her camera.
okay, so it's both.
Okay, yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
this was sustained. Officer received written instruction and counseling, 3 days suspension without pay, and for failure to turn on the body-worn camera on multiple occasions. That was sustained. The officer received written instruction and counseling. Cautioning, I'm sorry, not counseling, cautioning. Questions on that case?
I got one question. When an officer gets a penalty, let's say, can't take home the car or suspended, or how do they usually respond to that?
I think it's an individual response, Mr. Cohen, but the discipline is there to prevent a further occurrence of something like that from happening. So losing a take-home car is a big inconvenience because now you have to drive your personal vehicle
Yeah.
into the station and transfer your items into the car, or your car's parked, but it is a significant inconvenience, and so Yes, sir. We're hoping to deter future behavior is all. And you'll notice, and as Chief Scott mentioned last year, and just to make mention, is with many of these cases, you're seeing training attached, right? Responding back to training. If you've had a traffic crash or we see a pattern, we're handling a lot of the remediation with extensive training to prevent further incidents from happening.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Next case is 22-074. This is improper conduct, or I think I wrote decency, is that correct? Improper conduct or decency?
It is labeled as an indecency.
Indecency, thank you. This was a case where the officer posted on Facebook a message about two other officers. This case was sustained. Officer received written instruction and cautioning, and an employee notice, and 5 days suspension without pay.
I'm kind of outraged about this. I mean, Officer Holcomb stated the obvious, that Officer Millman and Shaw are disgusting. I know the discipline was because she said she didn't want to work with them. So he's afraid to serve with her. But when Mr. Bradley, who we talked about how disgusting it was when his eye was hanging out, said he was afraid, it was a big joke to everyone, and he's afraid to serve with her, I don't believe that. So, it was a private Facebook to friends, and I know in the past people have been disciplined for that. I just feel like, I believe Millman received a 5-day suspension for the disgusting text on a work computer that he did. For her to get 5 days, I think it's really unfair. I just want to stand up for her. She spoke what she thought was true. I know she was supposed to say, I don't want to work with them, but it was a private Facebook. And I think 5 days suspension, when she was saying what we should all think to say, is harsh.
This is her
And
second.
it's going to be in
Yes,
the
ma'am.
paper.
This
I
is
saw-
her second rule violation for this offense of the same type. She had another offense prior to it, which was also a sustained Rule 19. Remember our E3 Code of Conduct and the
Yeah.
recommended discipline? This is the second time that she's had a sustained one for that. So as we do with escalating and having, that conversation, this was her second time.
I hope she keeps speaking out. Somebody has to. I mean, in the report, talked about thin blue line, and she said it. I did see that, I can't remember, might have been the Gainesville Sun has already picked up on this case, as they do many of them. And I applaud her. Maybe she was too heated in what she said, but the people that I talk to are encouraged when they feel the police. And I know y'all say you encourage that. Maybe she shouldn't have posted on Facebook, but that's it.
Okay, thank you. Case 22-088. This was an improper access of the computer, and after investigating, that was not found. An officer did not use the computer. Questions on that? Okay. So now we want to go back to the case we had last month, which was 21-053. And on the table, you should also have a copy of an incident investigation report, which is also a part of that case. And again, as a reminder,
Which number did
this,
you say?
21-053.
yeah, you didn't get that in advance, that was on the table.
This one, the cover looks like this, it was on the table.
And as a reminder, that's a case where the citizen was pulled over, pulled into the National Vacuum parking lot, refused to exit the vehicle, and over time was removed from the vehicle and filed a report on harassment and targeting by the Gainesville Police. The case was unfounded, And we tabled that because Fareed had asked if we could have copies of the body-worn camera. And I think there were 2 separate body-worn camera videos that were sent to us electronically. Then you also had the opportunity to pick up a CD of the in-car camera. I had trouble opening the CD to watch
I
that.
did not see that.
So did
Yeah.
I was only
But
able to see
just-
one.
What's on the
The in-car camera was the car driven by one of the officers with a body-worn camera. So there wasn't much that you would have seen different than the body-worn
Was it
camera.
related to the stop?
Yes. It was the same
It was the
car
stop.
that drove behind the citizen that pulled in. Yes.
This little chart in the second page of the report says 1 gram of marijuana, and elsewhere in the narrative it says 0.5 gram. So why is it different, and which one's correct?
Which report are you talking about? Tom?
The investigative report and
Oh, I got you.
the gaining and resisting without violence.
If you all can correct me if I'm wrong, we just having read a lot of these. I think they're, say it's one item.
unit.
1 unit.
Oh, one.
It's not
So
a
it's not a-
measurement,
it's not a
yes,
weight.
now that I look at it.
Well, it
it's
says type measure GM. That's the remedy gram in my science anyway. So that's like 1 gram.
I just think the quantity, if they had, so let's say if they
Yeah.
had found like four different bags, they may have put a 4 in there to differentiate the quantity of what's in that particular item.
He's 100% correct. The quantity is the number, if they are individually packaged, and then the weight is placed in the narrative with the 0.5. And thank you for
Sorry.
telling me which report. Thank you. You explained it beautifully. You've read it before.
I read a lot of them.
So I'd already written notes from a few months ago when we had this case, and I believe our, anyway, Mr. Johnson was also concerned about it. It looked to me like we got it at minute 51. I had a hard time opening the zip drive also. So I'm wondering what happened before that. I'm very concerned. Officer Harmon, who is the training officer, he said it was the supervisor, doesn't even know why Officer Hickey, what Mr. Henley was doing to prompt him to make a U-turn. I mean, I believe once again that it's like everything that follows after justifies that he was followed. You know, he was obviously afraid. You could hear it in the video. So why did we get it at minute 51? Was that they didn't show the pursuit or what happened? But the training officer with him or a supervisor said he had no idea why he started following him. He didn't want to open the door. And then there's like 8 police officers there. You can hear a canine. Was the canine with them in the car? I just don't understand the whole setup. Like, I've always been told you don't get out of the car. What was the big deal? When he has his hands out, he's got everything on top. Why did they insist he had to come out? I mean, I've known people, like a previous board member, who didn't want to get out of the car, which is the sheriff's position, sheriff's department, you do exit the car. What we were told at that time is GPD wants people to stay in the car. I felt like this was somewhat of a mental health thing, the way the guy just kept, he was afraid. He kept talking over and over again. Why wasn't some kind of mental health instead of 8 police officers and a canine showing up? I just feel like it really got out of hand. The officer was obviously very polite. But once again, because people don't want to respond when they're afraid, they're penalized for it.
May I offer some clarification? Officer Harmon was the trainee. Officer Hickey was the field training officer in this case. So Officer Hickey was driving the car. He's the trainer.
Oh, he
And
kept
the-
saying my supervisor's here.
There was a sergeant who was on scene. There was a sergeant with them, and it was Sergeant Priester to begin with, and then 2 other supervisors ended up showing up because Mr. Henley had asked for a supervisor to respond to the scene, and they were saying there is one. The reason for the ask to be removed from the vehicle, Ms. Payne, is because they had a felony offense. And that is how we handle felony offenses at the Gainesville Police Department, is to ask you to step out of the vehicle. They had reason to take him into custody, and so that's what we do when we do felony stops.
What
is we ask
was the
them-
reason? They said he, during the narrative, it was that he had run a stop sign, he started laughing. We didn't see that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that could have happened. I believe it may not have happened. So for us to get a tape showing how they broke the window, which I didn't see on the tape, when we didn't see anything preceding that, I mean, I feel once again, especially if he had had a felony before, which I didn't read in the narrative.
Well, the felony came from the,
He didn't stop
Fleeing
once
and
the
eluding.
officer, it's fleeing and attempting to elude when the
Right.
officer engaged the
That was the
traffic stop.
felony, or he had a
Yes.
previous?
No, it's
That
this
was-
one.
that
He had
was the
reason.
felony, but that's also the concern because he never actually fled.
He's going 5 miles an hour at one point.
Right.
How's that fleeing?
The
But he
speed
went-
is not prima facie evidence for fleeing and attempting to elude.
It's the distance.
It's the distance, and he
Right,
traveled
I
a
understand that's
distance.
a state statute concern, but that gives officers the justification to escalate the situation that doesn't need to be escalated. And per policy, GPD should be able to address that issue because here we see a clear incident that was not exactly what it was portrayed to be. And the state attorney's office dismissed it. And I understand that that's subjective as well. But when you have a situation that's already been escalated, and then officers on scene fail to de-escalate, when an individual is asking questions like, why are you stopping me? And the officers are failing to cooperate with that. And that's a minor ask. Why are you stopping me? Especially if you're saying that it was for something like running a stop sign or whatever. Why is that so hard to cooperate? Why is it so hard to answer such a minor question?
This is 2 years ago, Fareed, and I don't have the answer as the
But
officers.
we see this over and over again in law
Yeah.
Okay.
enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And it seems to be a common practice. I mean, there's agencies where if you ask officers, they're required to tell you. But here, for whatever reason in Gainesville, that's not the case. And then we end up in situations like this.
Taking notes.
I think for me, it even goes back a little farther. Why did the officer U-turn in the road? What did the officer see, observe, to feel that that officer had to U-turn in the road and follow that vehicle? And I have not picked that up anywhere.
So Officer Hickey was the officer driving who completed the U-turn. He was deployed on military leave and then took a leave of absence after and then left the agency. So he was out of country and we were unable to interview him for this case. So that's why the case held. Fareed asked me about it right when it happened and I was like, you're going to have to wait. Well, we had to wait until we could no longer, we had to toll the investigation until we could interview that officer, and that we never had that chance.
And there was another concern as well of mine. We get footage of somebody walking around in Wawa, but then the video ends early. Why was that? They were about to have a huddle or something, and it just cuts off.
Well, if the call for service is done and they've shut their camera off, that's,
But it didn't appear to be done. It seemed like they were cutting it off to have a huddle, which is another practice that is subjective depending on what agency you're looking at. But
well,
I see
since,
agencies that require the officers to leave it on until everybody clears the scene, and then whatever has to be redacted will be redacted and taken out, and then other agencies allow the officers to cut it off while they have huddles. But I think for transparency reasons, you should always have it on. if you're still on scene.
Our-
Especially if you're talking about having a discussion about why someone's gonna be arrested. Because I see that over and over again as well, where officers are, okay, what are we gonna charge them with now?
They said traffic, fleeing, resisting officer with a question mark at the resisting officer when one of them asked. But again, did he run a stop sign? It doesn't say it in the officer's report.
So the resisting without is when you fail to comply with the law enforcement's legal
I know what it is.
ability to
That's what I was
command.
arrested.
Right, so.
That was added on to my arrest.
Yes, ma'am. So when they asked him to come out of the car and to unlock the door, and he unlocked the door, and then he closed the door again and locked the door, they're giving him lawful commands that, by law, he's supposed to comply with, and he did not. So that was 10 minutes of that
It
conversation.
was obvious to me that he was fearful. We see it over and over again. Over and over, it's black men saying, I'm afraid. He said, I don't, why wasn't a counselor brought? Maybe that would have responded better instead of having 8 officers show up, a dog barking, growling in the background. Was he
Why
brought
was
to
the
this?
canine on scene?
Yeah.
I don't know that answer.
I mean, y'all talk about
It's a felony stop, and when you have a felony stop, we require multiple officers to handle the scene, as you know, and as we have discussed here, we have been experiencing staffing issues. So
Yeah.
those officers work at the same time, and the dogs respond, and sometimes the handlers just act as police officers also. So I don't know the answer to that, but I was not there that night, and there was no misconduct regarding that, so that wouldn't be something I would have an answer for.
It's the attitude, I mean, we don't even know, did he really run the stop sign? And then it's obvious he was afraid. He was doing everything he could to comply except get out. And then all the other charges are added on. And then bringing 8 officers, if you have a staffing shortage, why are 8 officers there and a canine dog for just the simple, the guy doesn't want to get out of his car?
Well, it was a case of just officers that don't know how to de-escalate situations. That's all it is. They escalate for fun.
Golly.
We get to knock the window out now. That's
Uh,
all it was.
I think there'd be a lot less doubt and wondering if the cameras had been turned on at the moment of the U-turn and
Right.
kept on continuous from then forward. So what is the policy? I would think if you're gonna cover with video recording, you don't want things out of context. Ask any politician, you don't want anything out of context, you want the whole thing. So it seems like the camera should have been turned on at the moment of the U-turn and
When
kept
you-
on continuously.
When you
Yeah.
when you're going to engage a traffic stop or traffic, you're going to turn your lights on, that's when the cameras are supposed to be turned on. Some officers remember to turn it on when they're looking at a violation and others don't. It's difficult because you're driving and having to navigate and watch the person without turning that camera
Yeah, you
on.
need to hope for something uniform to happen on it, so maybe policy needs to state that clearly.
Okay.
And I would prefer that the cameras go on early and capture as much as possible the whole situation.
Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, though. There's 2 different ways, right? There's a manual, you
Yep.
can manually turn it on. If it's lights and sirens, it automatically turns on, and it will automatically back up 30 seconds.
The in-car cameras do not back up 30 seconds.
They don't back up
The
anymore?
body-worn cameras record a minute prior from when you turn them on.
Okay.
So why did we have a Wawa footage? Where did that come from?
The what? I didn't hear.
There was an officer that initially was at the Wawa, he responded, but we have like a minute or 2 of him walking around the Wawa finding something to eat.
And I apologize, is that before he responds to the call?
Yes.
It's because he turned his camera on probably on the way to the call for service, and the camera goes back a minute
No,
and
he
gives
was
you,
literally in the Wawa.
it doesn't matter where he is, it goes
Well,
back
no,
a
what I'm
minute.
saying is, it seemed like it was some type of audit footage or something. Because we have these in trucks as well, where you have triggers on, you have
Sure.
cameras that are triggered, but they can be audited, and footage that wasn't triggered can still be retrieved. And that's what it appeared that we were looking at.
So the way our buffering system works is the moment that if I turned the camera on right now, it would give you the conversation that I just had with Ms. Payne a minute ago.
I guess my question is, can you audit footage?
No.
Okay.
And we can't get any more back that isn't recorded past that minute,
Gotcha.
and we can't retrieve audio from the minute of buffering. That audio is not captured, and that's just how the system works for all of the Axon cameras for the body worn.
Which is understandable, it's a personal body.
Yes,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
So, all of these offenses, including the felony, is on this young man's record?
So he was charged with the fleeing and attempting to elude, which is a felony. He was charged with the misdemeanor, which is resisting without violence. And he was also charged with the possession of cannabis under 20 grams. So all of those would show as an arrest, but would not show as a conviction on his record.
It would not show.
Correct.
Okay, so the officer in question
Yes.
is no longer in Gainesville?
No, ma'am, he went to the Ukraine and on a personal leave of absence to help there, and we haven't seen him since, I don't believe.
And my last question is, do you track the officers who have continuously have these type of problems with the complaints? Is there any way you keep up where we could see who they are and if they did something similar, if there's a pattern with certain
But they
officers?
don't see this as a problem, so it
That's
wouldn't
what
be
I was
tracked.
gonna say.
But if an officer name comes up
Yes.
3 or 4 times
Yeah.
in a year, all you have to do is pull officers, we could see it. You all may not track it, but certainly we would like to, if there's a problem officer, then if they keep doing the same thing, if they've had the same incident to happen 3 or 4 times in a year, then we would like to see who those officers are, I think.
Okay.
Wouldn't you, because it could be a pattern.
So in 26.5, which is our disciplinary policy, we have an early warning system for when officers' names come to our attention on multiple cases, or they have multiple response to resistance reviews, use of force in common terms. And those actually trigger a response, which are, when their name keeps coming up, our internal affairs commander contacts the bureau commander, which is one of the 4 captains at the Gainesville Police Department. And the captains are expected to review all 4 or however many incidents this officer's name has come up with, and then give us a report back to say if there's any patterns, if there's any training needed. It is part of our CALIA standards, and we take it very seriously. One of the things that we are doing right now, and I can tell you, I know you guys looked at the traffic crashes and you saw that several officers may have had a traffic crash before and their names keeps coming up and they're escalating in the discipline and in the training, is that we're sending all of those officers out in addition to the training that is that is part of the internal affairs investigation, for another training. And from last year to this year, we've reduced the number of in-department crashes by 18. So we're trying to get those numbers down and handle it with training. But when it comes to internal affairs and complaints, we have an early warning system that is triggered. And then the bureau commanders have to do a review, and that response goes through the chain of command to the chief. But it also comes to us in training.
But this board would never see that.
You could see that if you guys would like to, as it is a public record.
Okay, well,
And
if
we
you
could
can,
do that. Yes, ma'am, that's not a
if you
problem.
could do that for the last year with officers whose name has come up on these same type of incidents,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
would like to look at it.
Okay.
I would, you all wouldn't? Okay.
No problem.
You 18 fewer crashes and compared to what? What was the
Year to year. Well,
No,
you
no,
know,
what
from,
was the number?
oh God, I'm sorry. I don't know the number off the top of my head, and that, I can send it to you in an email. It's sitting on my desk, but I work way too many numbers. But we evaluate that and make sure.
18 off of 120 is not a lot. It's 18 off of 30. That's insane.
Yeah, it was a significant reduction, Colleen. It wasn't 100, it's much less than that. I can tell you that, I just don't want to give you an exact number without having it.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard our chief say that we are 40 officers short.
Been that way for a while. Been that way for a while.
At one time it was 20-something. I didn't know it had gone up to 40, and I guess cities all over the country is having the same problems that we are having. Now, I know the Racket House closed. Were any of those persons sworn officers that we can use? I don't know how many was working over there, but I'm sure there had to be some experienced people over there. Have we reached out to them, or have they reached out to you, Chief, to see if we could place them somewhere? Because come September 31st, they won't have a job if we can't place them. And if we have this shortage, certainly, and if they have a good record, I don't want you to just hire anybody, if they have a good record, and I think it was, I don't know how many was over there, but that would put a dent in the 40s.
Yeah, we've taken 4 of the previous juvenile justice folks and employed them. We created, quite frankly, I created a community relations group, and I took 3 of those people and put them in that group. One is in charge of dealing with neighborhood watches and making sure that they have what they need. The other 2 are going to be guided toward youth and young adults outreach. And so they've been dealing with that with Racket House and just kind of continued that. The 4th person, Julian McCoy, is working with our fleet, and he's assigned to the fleet group and really support services. None of these folks have prior law enforcement experience. The closest that comes to that is Julian.
None of them?
None of them. With the police service technician. We talked to a couple of them, one in particular, to try to convince him to become a police officer. That's not something he wants to do. And I know Tony spoke with him, and I spoke with him at length, and that's not the call. This is the calling, and that's not a calling for him. As far as the other folks that are there, I think we have one other that we probably, I think the job offer went out to Mrs. Nimhart for the grants coordinator position, and so that would be a total of 5 that we kept from
Mortlake
that
Nimhart?
group. Say it again?
Mortlake Nimhart?
Yeah.
So what happened to John? Is there nothing we can do to put John in some type of position?
John has applied for a job with GRU. I talked with him today about the interview he had, and he hadn't heard anything yet. They just did this interview last week. The folks that I took on the lowest part of the salaries, John's salary is a little higher, and I could get 2 people for what I would have to pay John. So I ended up taking the 4 and now 5. John also had the opportunity to apply for the grant coordinator position.
That more,
That Mortlake is getting, yes. But he didn't do that.
man, we got a mess, these young people lives.
How do you make a full-time position out of working with neighborhood watches?
That is the neighborhood watching and communicating with the public, answering the questions that they have, keeping track of the meetings that they have. We've had 2 people that used to handle that job in what we call crime prevention. And you also assist with, putting on crime prevention activities. You might schedule different events and meetings with different groups, but it's not just simple. It's not as simple as it may sound. And we have to have someone that does that, because part of the issue is that we have to have officers that show up. They expect the officers to be there. If the officers aren't there to answer some of the questions that interact with the community, then the community, quite frankly, feels that if we're not invested in it, then why should they be?
When I was in crime prevention for Freed, I had 4 people. And that's because there were so many trainings and going to schools and doing educational things for the kids and doing National Night Out. And we had, at that time, 33 active crime watches within the city. And they meet on every night of the week. So a lot of us were going to different meetings.
How many do we have now?
Not sure. I know COVID knocked down and knocked out quite a few. a lot of them are reestablished. I know we have,
Pleasant Street.
Pleasant Street, which we have Fifth Avenue and Pleasant Street. We have quite a few that are coming back.
Yeah.
We just put some signs up at Bellamy Forge, and we've got several that we're working with. UPNA is always out there. It's a constant thing, and we're trying to grow, quite frankly, more. And it's not just the neighborhood watches, but business watches as well. So we're working with the businesses to provide them with the information that they need to operate in a safe environment and do our best to try to get that done.
Okay. Thank you. I just,
Are there any other questions or comments regarding this particular case? Yeah.
Well, a general question for Inspector Kernan. The cases that we get shown out of IA, are they selected randomly, or are we getting some choice picks, so we see plenty of ones that are sustained?
So you get all the ones that closed in the month previous. So they're all the investigations. There is no pan selection. This is every case that comes out of out of internal affairs that you get to review. And so there is no selection. It's everything.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good.
So I just wanted to at least address, and Fareed, Mr. Johnson, let me come back to you, and let's have an open dialogue, because this is our opportunity. I heard several recommendations that came from Mr. Blunt, from Ms. Fox, from Sheila. So the first one I heard is about the usage of the in-car camera. Now, I just want to mention this, and just so that everybody knows, we will evaluate the policy, and then I will come back to you with what exactly the language and what the policy currently says, but also take into account the recommendations that you're making to us about those policy changes. The second one, the conversation of, why wasn't a counselor available or having that, we'll explore that, and I will look at how we can change the policy to the small changes that you're asking for in terms of the body-worn camera. Now, the body-worn camera, when you go to an incident and you're dealing with a suspect, or you're transporting a suspect, or you're still on that call for service, our policy says that you will keep it on. You have noticed over the last several months, we have been very proactive in individuals who have not kept it on to make sure we're holding them accountable, even if it's not related to the offense, where you see we had the officer who damaged their vehicle, and we were looking at multiple body-worn cameras throughout a month period, and we noticed that camera wasn't getting turned on. So we're not overlooking those things, we're addressing them when they come to our attention. And we do care about how we handle things and how we communicate with the public, and to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can and evaluate each situation for its lawfulness and having that conversation. Over the past 5 years, we have worked as an agency to send as many officers as we possibly can to the crisis intervention training, which is dealing with individuals who are in a mental health crisis, who are experiencing that problem. And our goal in our strategic plan has been to get 100% of our officers through that training. The difficulty with that is threefold. They usually offer 3 classes a year, and we may get 8 to 10 slots in each of those classes. So as we train 30 officers a year or close to that, we don't get everybody through. But we have worked with the co-responder team and Meridian, who actually puts on the training, to ask for an increased number of those trainings to put more officers through, so they can learn these techniques for individuals who are in crisis. And I'm very proud of our co-responder team. We have Officer Bivens here, who came and presented. He rides with the clinician every day. Our goal is to try to better communicate, and if we can communicate better, then we will work on that, and we have been working on that. All of our training and all of what we have internally in dealing with individuals on the street is you're seeing the yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, and we're emphasizing to treat everyone like family. Chief Scott, when he came back as the assistant chief, he went to all the briefings and said, I expect you to treat everyone that you deal with on the street like you would treat a family member. And he's holding people accountable to that level. And I understand having frustration, but our goal is to take your recommendations and the things that you make forward and then bring back responses to this. It's not to sit here and say, I take it personal, I do as an individual that has worked in the community for a long time, when the perception of our actions is that we don't care. Because I do believe we do care, but we need to also remember we are working as an agency to be community partners and addressing problems as we see them. So early warning system, having that come back to you, that's why we're here. So, and I just want to say that out loud, that's why we're here, is to listen and hear what you're bringing to us and give us the perspective of the community and be willing to be open to potential changes, whether it's in the policy or something else that we can address. So I just say that
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric?
Sorry, I was just kind of
Yes.
piggyback on that, so
Sure.
twofold. I mean, the ANC is kind of the dual role
Sure.
that I run as well. Really looking at it, I don't know if it was a change thing, but I do recall in-car cameras doing that backup. If that's something that's changed, I might suggest going back to that as well. Not just for the community of seeing, but
Sure.
it also prevents people like me from saying, oh, well, that stop sign run didn't happen, or, right, this didn't happen. Prevents the defense side from making this argument in the first place, if it's on camera. So it would be something that I would think officers would really want and welcome as well. Second thing is just, if you're looking for suggestions, especially piggybacking on this, I don't know if the perspective that I can offer you is if there's even a hint of like a Baker Act might be something that is somewhat an option or more appropriate on certain cases. Following an arrest, getting someone basically out of that custody and into a Baker Act facility is just, day after day, it's increasingly tough from the criminal justice side. So I can let you know it's been really difficult to get people into a Baker Act facility following an arrest. And that's becoming more and more tough
Okay.
as we go. But if you can do it on your end prior to an arrest or instead of an arrest, I know that's something that may be beneficial as well.
Okay. So two things very quickly, and thank you for bringing up both. So the first thing with the in-car cameras, I don't think it's ever, I will double check, I will verify. I'm not confident that we've ever been able to back that up 30 seconds in the start.
Confusing it with ASO, but
It's this, and ASO may have a different platform, but I will come back to you with an answer on that. The other thing I want to mention about in-car cameras is that not every car in our agency has them.
Right.
Probably half of patrol, I think we have 50 cars in service that have them. So there are people who actually don't have in-car cameras. Everybody is issued a body-worn camera, but not every car has an in-car camera. So if someone's doing a traffic stop, that part wouldn't be captured. So, and we will look at the policy and try to, and see what it is and come back with a suggestion. The second part is our policy on Baker acting and Baker acting an individual. If we have misdemeanor charges on an individual who is in a mental health crisis, we take them to Meridian. It's in our policy. If they meet Baker Act criteria, we're not taking them to the jail. And I'm very proud to say of the co-responder program, they do so many more diversions, and sometimes it's not diverting into a Baker Act, it's diverting right into counseling right at that moment, right? It's diverting away from the ER, it's diverting away from jail. They are, at one point for one of the quarters, I think they actually responded to close to 800 calls for service. And that is taking individuals who are in need of mental health services and putting them right next to them with a clinician and pro. It's probably one of the most proud things we've done in the last 5 years at the police department. I'm very proud of that unit. But just know our policy says that if the person meets Baker Act criteria and they have misdemeanor charges, that they do go to Meridian or a receiving facility instead of the jail, and we sworn complaint them. Because we recognize, along with our interaction in the community, that we can't get, the jail has even told us, you're not going to get as good of mental health treatment in the jail as you would at a mental health facility.
100%.
And we recognize that and have been doing that for many years now.
But and my point was, it's not only not getting as good as, but getting them out of that situation into that is extremely difficult.
So I think the clarification, are you saying once they're arrested, it gets harder to get them into Meridian? If they've had a prior, like that was a felony arrest?
What we're seeing within the system is, especially with someone with a record,
Yeah,
we're seeing trespasses, right? That's a perfect example of a trespass call comes in. I mean, almost automatically that should be looked at for Baker Act criteria at this point. but we're getting them, they're being held in custody in the jail, and then they deteriorate while they're in the jail, and then getting them out of that and into Baker Act facility is becoming increasingly difficult.
Right.
And it used to be that way. 10 years ago, getting them out of that into, if they met the criteria, was much easier.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more difficult to do that. So that's why I'm just pulling out there as a suggestion to really look at, especially misdemeanor cases, if a Baker Act is possible rather than an arrest. Would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
And
feedback.
if the minutes would reflect that the council would like data on officer names that come up frequently in the past year.
Whether GPD thinks it was a good arrest or not.
Well, these are officers whose names come up frequently.
Right.
For any matter.
Do you want it for traffic crashes and for
Hear about crashes.
other misconduct? Just other
The
misconduct?
traffic crashes kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, they kind of
Point.
do. Other misconduct.
Okay, got it. Thank you, just for clarification.
But I don't think my traffic crashes.
Thank you.
And may I ask one more question, Chairman Dunkel? Are we talking, so today is, we're in the end of July, so from last July till this? Or do you want 22? I mean, what year are we?
Year to date or calendar?
Okay. Thank you.
I would go calendar
No,
year.
I was asking.
I would go
do we
12
want
months.
Year to date or
12
do we
months.
want calendar?
I think 12 months, past 12 months.
Yeah, past 12 months.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I caught a few months ago an officer in an IA investigation who'd been in one.
Oh, yeah, you'll see some names.
Yeah.
Right, but I can't go through 100 going, oh, I remember them.
There was a
And
name
just
twice.
for information as well, I had taken a note
I asked.
the other day that I'm going to ask for each of us to have a file with our name on it, brought to this meeting with the D3 discipline process in it, so we don't have to remember to bring that individually every time. And that way, if we want to refer back to that, we can. Okay, I don't believe there's any public comments. Member comments?
Next meeting, I may be out of town that day, but I'll try to adjust it. But it's 51st anniversary I'm at the beach, but maybe I can go one day early. But the idea of meeting at Pine Ridge is wonderful. And what I'd like to see, if it's possible, that we get Pine Ridge residents know we're there and they show up.
I'm going to
With their
email the
concerns.
ones I still have. Miss Geneva just passed away a couple weeks ago, yeah. It was awful. Her daughter Samantha's devastated.
But
I have a few things when you're done.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'd be ashamed for us to go out there and not have the residents show up to say what their concerns are. So somehow, ideally, it would be leafleted, but I don't know who does that.
Well, the lieutenant out, I think it's a lieutenant, when we had the Pine Ridge meetings, Chief Scott, is it a lieutenant, a tall black woman,
That's a captain.
captain?
That's Captain Young.
She might be willing to put leaflets on the door. I don't know, I mean, I could do it if you give them to me.
But I'll talk with Deborah a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
talk to Deborah,
Miss
yeah.
Geneva is the key person, but she just passed away, so,
My daughter's taking over.
yeah. I mean, Miss Geneva hasn't been well for a while.
Yeah,
I'll
you
do
can
that.
see the importance of just getting, we're there,
Yeah.
they show up.
I have three. So I'm concerned about the publicity. The latest one is going to be the Facebook thing. WFT News had the underwear at the nightclub that we went over. Person died in GPD custody in the last 2 weeks. The Collier Company lawsuit was settled for like $100,000. I mean, 60. It was, the previous two lawsuits were for $100,000 each. So I'm concerned about that. The other thing is, in your report, you said that Captain Owens reviewed the new laws. She did go over them also, but it was also Captain Young who gave the big presentation. I think that should be reflected. the third paragraph. It was Captain Young who gave us the presentation about the guns.
I'll amend that. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say I'm sorry I missed the last meeting. I was relying on the bus that day, and I forgot it was not at City Hall. And so when I got to City Hall door at 6:05, getting over there on the bus was just no point.
Oh, just call me anytime.
Well, the meeting would have been already on. I could have been disturbing somebody in the meeting.
Like last month, I went to Lincoln. I was looking at the wrong
Oh,
piece of paper, and my mind was working. I drove to Lincoln, I said, wait a minute, we're not here, we're here. Yeah.
yeah.
You can call me.
Yeah.
Other member comment? Okay, I have just a few. The Gun Violence Prevention Summit is August 6th and 7th, and I've made a commitment to attend both of those days. I'm also going to participate on August 15th for the oral interview panel for new officer candidates for about 4 hours that afternoon. If you have any particular questions that you'd like me to consider asking, please get them to me. And then on August 3rd is the City Commission presentation of our annual report. And I'll add the comments, obviously, about the member terms and look for their guidance on that, I suppose. We are working, the Chief Inspector and I have had some conversations about trying to put together a presentation on University Avenue and 13th and sort of some of the subsidiary roads, all the traffic mitigation efforts that are going on, and so the car and pedestrian interface, if you will. So we hope to pull that off perhaps for next month as well.
That's cool.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
My route to work has changed, and so I will say there's now a giant crosswalk and light, and it's much safer.
Yeah.
for
Yeah, I saw
pedestrians.
that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there.
There is.
That's it for me.
I do feel safer. I bicycle there almost every day. I do feel safer because cars can't go fast.
I have beef with our city. As a planner myself, I have beef with our city planners about handling that intersection. They should have created right turn lanes, dedicated right turn lanes
It's the
on
state-
13th Street,
it's the
north and south.
state gets to decide that, not the city.
But the
That's a-
city let the standard go ahead without that
It's
lane.
really, I don't, it all boils down to the state controls that
So
intersection.
you've got more under construction.
But I agree, I would love to see some safety changes.
Well, the city did mess up on the standard.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, our next meeting then is August 23rd at Pine Ridge.
Yes.
And I'll talk to Deborah about the leaflets as well. And if there's no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all.